What if I told you that one wrong move, just one, could have wiped out millions of Americans overnight? Not a scary movie scenario, not some dystopian comic book, real life. That's the reality of October 27, 1962, the day the world teetered on the edge of nuclear annihilation. And America? Well, she was standing blindfolded on the edge of a knife, not knowing if she'd wake up tomorrow. Here's the setup. The Cold War was already a powder keg. The US and the Soviet Union were staring each other down across oceans, missiles, and ideologies. But things got personal, real close, when US intelligence got word that the Soviets had smuggled nuclear missiles into Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida. The entire country went from casual tension to full-blown panic. People didn't know it, but their lives were literally in someone else's hands. One decision, one signal, one misstep, boom, everything gone. So how did it come to this? How did the US, the world's mightiest military power, suddenly find itself a heartbeat away from complete collapse? Let's rewind. A few weeks earlier, American spy planes had spotted unusual construction activity in Cuba. Nothing too obvious at first, just trucks, cranes, and concrete bunkers. But the more they watched, the more it became clear these weren't normal fortifications. They were missile sites armed with Soviet medium-range nuclear missiles capable of obliterating major US cities in minutes. And the kicker? The world didn't even know they were there. President Kennedy and his advisors were flipping out behind closed doors. The Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to strike immediately, a full-on military response. But Kennedy? He knew that one misstep could trigger global annihilation. He was asking the question nobody dared to whisper. Are we about to start World War III over a few islands in the Caribbean? Meanwhile, the military was on high alert. Fighter jets were ready to scramble, bombers loaded, and nuclear subs patrolling the Atlantic like coiled snakes, ready to strike at a moment's notice. One miscommunication, one accidental launch, and that was it. America would be toast, and the rest of the world might not even have a chance to blink. And here's the thing that most people don't get. This wasn't some abstract threat. It was minute to minute. At 9:32 a.m., AU, two spy planes spotted Soviet anti-aircraft fire coming up faster than expected. One pilot later admitted he thought he was about to die. And for a split second, the entire chain of command teetered on the edge. Any aggressive move could have triggered missiles in Cuba or counterstrikes across the globe. Could you imagine sitting at home, sipping your coffee, while the smartest people on the planet were deciding if your city would still exist in an hour? It's the kind of pressure you can't even fake. And it wasn't just the US. The Soviets were equally tense, paranoid, ready to defend their assets in Cuba at all costs. Every message exchanged, every military order, every secret meeting, it was a game of chicken with nuclear fire. Now here's the question everyone wonders. How close were we really? Too close. Too damn close. According to declassified documents decades later, there were multiple points that day where a single wrong decision, one misunderstood order, could have triggered nuclear war. That's the scale of the mess America found herself in. And we're not talking hypothetical here. We're talking real, heart-pounding, global catastrophe-level danger. By midday on October 27, 1962, the tension in Washington was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The Situation Room buzzed like a war drum. Phones ringing off the hook, advisors shouting over one another. Every face in that room knew the stakes. And yet, outside the government, America was blissfully unaware that the world was one step from total collapse. So, what exactly was going on behind those doors? The Soviets weren't just sitting quietly in Cuba. They were primed, armed, and ready. The US military had issued DEFCON 2, the highest alert ever in peacetime. Bombers were fueled and in the air. Nuclear submarines prowled the Atlantic, capable of launching at a moment's notice. And here's the kicker. No one was entirely sure what the other side would do. One misread signal, one misstep, and the planet could vanish in an instant. And then, disaster almost happened. AU, two reconnaissance plane, was shot down over Cuba. One American pilot killed in seconds. That single act, simple as it sounds, could have been the spark that ignited nuclear hellfire. Kennedy and his advisors were faced with a gut-wrenching question. Do we retaliate now and risk full-scale war? Or do we hold back and pray diplomacy works? Every second felt like an eternity. Meanwhile, American submarines, loaded with nuclear torpedoes, were being tailed by Soviet ships in the Caribbean. One captain nearly fired a nuke after being depth-charged and thinking war had already started. The chain of command hesitated, unsure if this was the right call or if it was the last call he'd ever make. One wrong button, one misunderstood order, and boom. It's insane to even imagine. And here's a question that haunts historians to this day. What if someone had panicked? The missiles in Cuba could reach major U.S. cities in minutes. New York, Washington, Miami, all targets. The thought of millions of Americans vaporized in moments wasn't theoretical. It was an immediate possibility. The adrenaline, the fear, the sweat running down the backs of military leaders. This was a literal countdown to disaster. As the day dragged on, the tension got almost unbearable. Kennedy demanded back-channel communications with Khrushchev. Messages were sent, decoded, misread, resent. Every response, every delay, felt like it could trigger apocalypse. Meanwhile, in public, the president had to act calm, reassuring citizens, hiding the fact that the U.S. was staring into the abyss. Imagine that pressure. Imagine knowing that your calm face might be the only thing keeping panic and total annihilation at bay. And just when you thought things couldn't get more chaotic, there were close calls no one knew about for decades. Soviet ships carrying missiles were approaching the quarantine line. Submarines under U.S. blockade were attacked with depth charges. Tension in those steel coffins underwater reached a point where any misjudgment could have launched nukes at the U.S. mainland. Every officer was thinking, is this it? Are we about to go up in smoke? Even the advisors in the room weren't in full agreement. Some screamed for military strikes. Others begged for patience. Kennedy himself walked a razor's edge. Every choice could save millions or kill them. And that's when he leaned into diplomacy, taking the high-risk gamble that would define history. But before the relief came, one more chilling question needed an answer. Could a single wrong move have wiped out the eastern seaboard before anyone realized what happened? According to declassified reports, the answer is yes. Absolutely. The U.S. had survived this day by a hair, by a single thread, by decisions so calculated they defy belief. And that's what makes October 27, 1962, one of the most terrifying days in modern history. Not because war did happen, but because it almost did. And at the center of it all were ordinary humans making extraordinary decisions under pressure so intense, it's almost impossible to comprehend. By late afternoon on October 27, 1962, the world was holding its breath. Washington was a pressure cooker, Cuba was a powder keg, and the Soviet Union was just as tense on the other side of the globe. Every message sent, every decision made, could have been the trigger that set off nuclear Armageddon. And no one, literally no one, knew how close it really was. Imagine this. American reconnaissance had identified several Soviet missile sites ready to launch. Submarines, loaded with nuclear torpedoes, were lurking under the Caribbean waves, just waiting for orders. Fighter jets were scrambled, bombers fueled, and the military command was shouting at every level. And yet, amid all this chaos, the world's leaders had to act with surgical precision. One wrong move, one misread code, and millions of people would be gone in the blink of an eye. Here's the question that must have raced through every leader's mind. What happens if diplomacy fails? It wasn't a hypothetical, it was a knife-edge reality. The tension wasn't just in the room. It was in the air, in the ocean, in every corner of the globe that could feel the fallout. And the worst part? There was no time for error. Every second was a potential death sentence for millions. The closest brush with disaster came when a Soviet submarine, surrounded by American warships enforcing the quarantine, nearly launched a nuclear torpedo. They'd been depth-charged, their oxygen was running out, and in sheer panic, the captain was ready to fire. Luckily, his second-in-command restrained him, arguing that confirmation was needed first. That one act, one argument, literally saved millions of lives. One choice, one human decision, and yet, that same day, countless other moments teetered on the edge. Meanwhile, back in Washington, Kennedy's advisors were screaming at him. Strike them now. No, wait. The clock was ticking. One wrong call, one misinterpreted signal from Cuba, and the U.S. would retaliate. The Cuban missiles, once fired, could reach American cities in minutes. The suburbs of Florida, New York, Washington vanished in moments. And that's when Kennedy leaned into diplomacy with the gutsiest gamble of his career. Another mid-story question emerges here. Could we have actually survived a direct nuclear exchange? Analysts later confirmed the chilling truth. No. The infrastructure, the cities, the population, they weren't prepared. A strike would have meant mass casualties on a scale never seen before. Entire generations could have been wiped out. As evening fell, messages from Khrushchev finally came through. The Soviets would remove the missiles in exchange for U.S. promises not to invade Cuba and secretly removing Jupiter missiles from Turkey. It was a compromise that walked the thinnest tightrope imaginable. One misread message, one delayed response, and that deal might have never happened. Think about the irony. The world's two greatest superpowers were playing a game of chicken, with the planet as the ultimate prize, and somehow, by threadbare luck and razor-sharp diplomacy, catastrophe was averted. One decision, made calmly under extreme pressure, kept humanity alive. But the lesson here isn't just about luck. It's about human judgment, courage, and the terrifying weight of responsibility. Leaders had to weigh death against survival, panic against prudence, fury against reason. And for just one day, October 27th, 1962, the entire human race depended on them making the right calls. By the end of the day, the immediate threat had passed. The missiles would be dismantled, the submarines would return, and the world would exhale, but only barely. And here's the question that lingers even now. Are we really any safer today? One wrong decision back then could have erased centuries of civilization in hours. And that's a warning that still echoes. As night fell on October 27th, 1962, the tension didn't just dissipate. It lingered like smoke over a battlefield. The missiles in Cuba would be removed, the U.S. would promise not to invade, and a secret deal would quietly see missiles withdrawn from Turkey. The immediate threat had passed. America had survived. The world had survived. But the memory of how close it had all come, that would haunt the planet forever. Let's answer the questions that kept everyone on edge that day. Could one wrong move have triggered nuclear annihilation? Absolutely. Multiple times. A U-2 pilot shot down, a Soviet submarine captain panicking, miscommunications flying faster than anyone could track. One slip, one wrong signal, and millions of lives would have ended before lunch. Could diplomacy really save the day? It did, but barely. Kennedy's gamble, leaning on back-channel communications and measured restraint, was razor-thin. One delay, one misunderstanding, and the negotiations could have collapsed, and with them, the world. And that's the chilling part. It wasn't luck, exactly. It was human decisions at the edge of panic, balancing reason against raw fear. And here's the lesson that hits hardest. We were so damn close to a global collapse that the scale of it is almost unimaginable. Cities could have been wiped out. Entire generations could have vanished. And all because two superpowers were playing chicken with no rule book, no guarantee, no safety net. One wrong choice would have turned history into a nightmare. So, why does this matter today? Because history doesn't just stay in the past. The same kinds of tensions, the same risks, the same stakes, they still exist. Leaders make decisions that ripple through the world, often quietly, often in secret, while millions of people remain unaware of just how fragile the balance is. One bad call can still tip the scales. One decision, made calmly and smartly, can still save millions. October 27th, 1962 is more than a historical date. It's a warning. It's a reminder that humanity is constantly walking on a knife's edge, that catastrophe is only a decision away, and that the difference between survival and annihilation often comes down to a single moment, a single person, a single choice. So, as you sit here thinking about that day, ask yourself, how close are we today? How fragile is the world we take for granted? That day America almost collapsed serves as a cautionary tale, a testament to human courage under pressure, and a sobering reminder that history's edge is never far from where we stand now. One day, one decision, one reason we're still here. October 27th, 1962. Never forget it.